joining us for this episode of AWGtv. I'm your host, Kendall, and I'm here with water gardening professional Demi Fortuna to talk about ponds. Thanks, Demi, for being here.
It's a pleasure.
So in the pond trifold, we talk about all the different elements that go into a pond and how you're basically creating your own ecosystem. Can you explain how to create a balanced ecosystem?
I think so. The components of a balanced ecosystem are an animal component like the fish, a plant component like water lilies or marginal plants in the water, and then there's bacteria that help take waste from the animals and convert it into a form that the plants can use it, creating a cycle. The balanced pond is going to be much more easy to maintain because this cycle will help clean the pond for you, keep the water clear, and keep the water of very good quality.
How would somebody choose the right pump for their application, and what things should they consider?
There are a couple of things to consider when choosing the right pump, Kendall. One is the flow you're going to need. Whether you want a trickle or a sheet of water or a Niagara, that'll affect the size of the pump that you're going to want. Then you're going to have to consider how much work the pump has to do. It has to lift the water to the height of the waterfall, but it also has to force water through plumbing. Those two things combined are called the total dynamic head. And then the final factor to consider is how much the pump is going to cost to run.
And why is a skimmer important to have in a pond?
Well, skimmers help in the maintenance of a pond and in keeping the water quality as high as possible. By removing debris before it can settle to the bottom, the skimmer keeps the pond clear and clean. Also, by collecting that debris in a net that's easy to get to at the side of the pond, it's very simple to keep that skimmer clean. And finally, the skimmer houses and protects the pump right at the edge of the pond where it's easy to get to. So it's easier to keep the pump clean and to keep it maintained properly so it'll last longer.
What about a filter falls, and why is it important to have one?
It's important to have a filter falls to keep the water quality as good as possible. Filter falls work in three ways. First, they mechanically remove all the small solids in the water, the debris that you would see floating around in the water that go through the pump and skimmer. So this would be very small stuff, and the pads inside the filter falls will remove that. Secondly, the pads inside the filter falls are a home for that beneficial bacteria we talked about when we talked about the cycle. That bacteria is very important in keeping the water quality high by removing toxic chemicals from fish wastes. And finally, the filter falls aids in the circulation and aeration of the pond, keeping the oxygen levels very high.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Can you explain what the importance is of using water treatment?
Yes, Kendall. Water treatments, when properly applied, can help with that balance, that cycle we were telling about, by adding beneficial bacteria when needed to keep animal waste breaking down and available for plants to use. And they can also help clear the pond and clean the pond depending on what needs to be done. So a water management program should include water treatments.
I'm sure a lot of people would find that very helpful. And for homeowners who are new to the water gardening world, are there kits to make things easier for them?
As a matter of fact, there are kits available to make it very easy to set up the proper equipment with the right size pond and all the right size liner and underlayment mated to the proper pump to make it as easy as possible to install a balanced ecosystem.
Great. I think we have a good understanding of all the elements that go into a pond. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kendall.
Now it's time for our viewer questions. Our first question comes from Ricky in Texas. He asks, does well water affect the water feature system if it has a high concentration of iron in it? Demi, could you help Ricky out?
Iron can affect the pump's function, so you have to be careful that iron buildup doesn't affect the pump. And at too high a level, it can affect the growth of certain plants. Algae, for example, treat iron as a nutrient, so you can have problems with algae blooms, that sort of thing. So that's something that you have to really investigate on a pond-by-pond basis. The level of iron is really critical. You can get your water tested at a cooperative extension, and from there you can figure out if you'll need to do anything. They'll also be very helpful at the local cooperative extension in telling you if there's anything you have to do to treat the water or to adapt your pond keeping techniques to it.
That's a great answer, Demi. Now our second question comes from Joyce in Georgia. She asks, if I have the pump turned off in my pond, Do I have to put something in it to keep the mosquitoes away? Demi, what do you think she should do?
Actually, with the circulation turned off, the pond will usually keep mosquitoes under control by itself as long as there are fish in the pond. A properly designed pond with a lot of fish in it allows the fish to get to the mosquitoes as they come down to lay their eggs. So typically, a well-designed pond with fish in it will actually reduce the mosquito population. If the pond has shallows that fish can't get to, that might be a place for mosquitoes to breed. You can always use mosquito dunks, which are small donuts of an inert material, usually compressed straw, that are inoculated with a bacterium that actually eats mosquito larvae, and that'll take care of the problem.
Thanks for watching this month's episode of AWGtv. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for new videos every month. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at AWGtv. And make sure you send in your questions to awgtv@atlanticwatergardens.com. And we'll see you next month.